So, hello, mate. It's good to
Ali,
see
how
you.
are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well. Really enjoyed the Lemmy thing.
That was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
That was just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Um, yeah, it's just a lovely, lovely day, and everybody I know who was there really enjoyed it.
I really
Um,
enjoyed it. Despite the intense workload, it was actually a really fun day for, I think, everybody involved.
yeah,
It came out of nowhere and had to be sorted very quickly. And it all came together, thank God. So, yeah.
yeah, it did. And what I'm really enjoying seeing as well is the continued pilgrimages that people are
Yes.
making,
Loving
watching
it.
social media and seeing people going up there and saying, "Oh, made a special visit," and it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, there's loads. And people are going from all over the country. I mean, I've seen some people go from all over the planet, really. So it's actually,
Yes.
quite cool that other people are sort of making the pilgrimage, as you said. And I think as it gets later into the year, closer to the 10th anniversary of his passing, I think December could be quite busy up there.
Yeah, and
Um,
also I think there was that the hope that this can lead to playing part of regenerating the area, I think is genuine.
yeah.
Purely just anecdotally, seeing the amount of people I've seen from other countries saying, "Well, it looks like Stoke or Burslem has just been added to my list of places I need to go
I agree.
when I'm in the
And
UK."
for what is essentially a relatively old mining and pottery town, it seems to be really invigorated. And
Mm.
I know there have been meetings since that event to get the Queen's Theatre investment sorted out because they can get that open as a permanent studio and working art space. I was fortunate or unfortunate to get a tour of it while it was shut while we were there.
Oh, right.
And it's a 1920s Art Deco building, which has barely been touched in the last 100 years.
There's so many of them in the area. I mean,
Yeah,
beautiful listed buildings with trees growing out of them.
yeah. And like David, who runs one of the guys who runs the IFK Legacy for the UK, he told me what it would cost to get that building open. And it's into the multi-millions. It's like
Yeah,
15 million plus. And
yeah,
but what was funny was he's been chasing the council for meetings for months and months and months and months and months. Then all of a sudden we put that on. They see that we get 3,000 people to the event and it's of interest. And now they're knocking down his door for meetings. Like
brilliant.
he was trying to get answers out of them forever. Now they're like, when can we get into this? And I know
Right.
that Motorhead's management have had follow-up meetings with the council and there'll be some ongoing things with it. It's not something I personally would get overly involved in,
Mhm.
um, unless there is a big Lemmy aspect to it, which I would coordinate something, I'm sure. But
Yeah,
um, it's such a huge project. Like, there are walls falling down inside, and obviously it needs new electrics, new plumbing, new windows, new roof. Like, there's
yeah,
so much to be done. But
yeah,
yeah, it's great to see a town like that where every vendor that we were involved with locally, because you're not aware of this, but I went to the local Indian restaurant, the local sandwich place, the local burger place, and made sure that all of those places were our food providers just for the staff.
right.
So I worked with everybody. Like I didn't bring any food from outside or anything like that. We went to the local Indian the night before for a team curry. We went to the breakfast place and I paid for sandwiches for like 30 odd people to get people starting work at 7 a.m. and actually not being miserable about it. But all those vendors on their own told me it was their best day ever.
Well, I went into one of the local burger joints later on that day,
Yeah,
and they were playing Motorhead
yeah.
constantly.
Good.
And I was like, "Is this your normal kind of music you'd be playing?" She was like, "No, it's normally sort of chart stuff, R&B." And she said, "This makes a great change. It's been a
Yeah,
brilliant day. We've absolutely
yeah,
loved it, and
yeah.
everybody who's been come in has been just really polite." And she said, "This is literally like my most fun day of working here."
Yeah. And I can see why. The people were brilliant. The fans were amazing. I spoke to people from 10 different countries on the day. Like,
Yeah,
it never ended. And I'm
yeah,
still in touch with a number of them who I sort of made friends with over the course of the 2 days that we were properly on site. I actually went back on the Saturday morning as well to have a look at it when there wasn't 3,000 people around it because as much as I was lucky enough to see it before it was unveiled and, obviously I was there helping get the parachute off when it got stuck, but, you don't appreciate it. And
Yeah.
we went back the next morning, there's about 25 people there and you're like, it's 9 in the morning and there's
Yeah.
25 people queuing to take pictures at the statue.
Well, I was in the area that night and I was around all the following day and I must have
Okay.
been past it 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
And at any point there was a load of people there. But
Yep.
one of the highlights for me was the following morning. I went with my girlfriend. We went and had breakfast at a cafe
Hmm.
right the other side of the town
Okay.
by a lovely lake and everything. And there was a family of locals behind us, and there must have been 3 or 4 different generations there. And one of them said, "Oh, did you get to see the statue, Lemmy, yesterday?" And this was kind of, I mean, she was probably sort of mid to late 30s, one of the daughters. And she was saying to somebody else was there, and they were like, "Oh, no, I didn't. But yeah, no, I hear it was like a really busy day. Burslem's busiest day ever." And I said, "Oh yeah, it was." And then the parents started talking, saying, and the dad was like, he's in his 70s, and he was going, "Oh, now, Lemmy, there's a proper rock star. He was Robbie Williams. Oh, you can shove it."
Yeah.
Not proud of him, but Lemmy, what a man! Watch the documentary on him, and his wife, also in his 70s, pipes up and she says, "Well, I'll go up there and say hello to him when it's quietened down." But
That's amazing.
and they were all chatting about Motorhead. Oh, he went and he moved to LA, didn't he? But never forgot where he was from. And I just listened to this 5 minute conversation of 3 or 4 different generations going on behind me, and it just put a real smile on my face because I just thought, yeah, do you know what this really is reaching all sorts of people on all sorts of
It
levels.
myself and Todd were sat in the hotel on the Friday night, and we randomly get talking to two guys, and they didn't realize who Todd was at first. They had no idea who I was because they don't need to. And they're like, "You're the guy from the stage." And these two guys, and they're like, so I was like, "Yeah, yeah." And they told us stories for probably the next 2 hours of how one of them had seen Hawkwind, I think, 23 times.
Bloody hell.
And with Lemmy. And Todd was like, that must have been almost every show.
Yeah.
And it went on, and this guy was telling stories, and Todd and I would interject with various other anecdotes and things that they didn't know, and but it was really fun. Like these guys were, one was probably I think early 60s, another one was mid 70s, and the stories they had of gigs they'd been to and places they'd been, and they randomly went to Hawkwind's merch shop on the old Great Western Road in London and turned up and got invited into the house. It was a house and they sold from this house and got invited into this house and had stayed for 3 days. Just like, and it was brilliant. And then we all went to bed, just like, and that's the end of the night. But it was like these people reminiscing. Then we got up the next morning and there's all these people in sort of in the breakfast area all wearing Motorhead shirts, all talking about it. I just sat there with Tim Butcher, just talking, just sat there enjoying the view, and it was like it
Yeah.
was quite surreal, really. So it was a great project to be a part of. There's another one, I think, going to be announced fairly soon. Um, Quite a big one for the UK,
Oh, right.
and I just can't say anything about it yet. Which will be which I think I should be involved in it. And it's that'll be fun. It'll be just as much fun as this one.
Well, if there's any way you can get me along, I can always get a
Well,
podcast out of it.
can't see you not being involved. Let's put it that way. I don't make those decisions. I just make the event happen.
Yes. Yeah, no, well, no.
There's no way that Todd, Alex, and Stefan. I don't think they'd do it without you anyway. I think we found the formula on this one. I think the team that we put
Yeah.
together to get it over the line and actually make it happen was quite phenomenal.
Yeah,
Uh,
it was, and the thing is, as well as it came, it beautiful, it just came together really beautifully
yeah,
on the day, and it was such a great vibe people, chanting Lemmy before
Yeah, it was brilliant.
anything's happened.
And this, it was sunny. There was barely a cloud in the sky. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a 100% success rate with Stoke. Every day I have, or Stoke and Burslem, with every day I have been there, there has not been a day of rain or a cloud.
Wow.
Like, so, we did 3 site visits. I went there for the football a few years ago, and that was a great day. Uh,
Bloody hell, really? I've been to the Britannia Stadium once and I nearly froze to death. It was the most
it was
horrible
cold. It was cold, but it
experience.
was sunny.
Ah, right, okay.
It was, if you want the story briefly, I was there for Spurs Stoke, and I'm sat in the Spurs end, obviously, and they were recording an episode of Don't Tell the Bride at the game.
Right.
And this is one of the worst experiences I've ever had in my life. They did the groom had organised this to marry his missus at the Britannia, and they were getting married in front of the Spurs fans, and
Oh
three and a
God.
half thousand, and they're obviously from Stoke, 3,500 Spurs fans singing the most offensive things during
Yeah, I
the
can
whole of
imagine.
half
Yeah.
time at this poor couple. And then there's all these guys from the team, like, please stop, which just made it worse. And
Yeah.
I think Vicky told me about it when she saw it on TV. She was like, "Oh, you lot were horrible." I was like, "It wasn't me. I didn't start it." But it was a great day out because Spurs won, and every day I've had in Stoke and Burslem has been phenomenal. The people I've met there are great. I've made friends there, which I will, I'm going back there. I'm going back to the pub which we were working in
Yeah.
at some point in the next couple of weeks before silly season
Oh, do you
kicks in.
mean the pub that used to be a comedy club that I was in all the time?
That's really funny. I mean,
Isn't
it's
it just
yeah, and
really mad?
I see. Apparently there's a tunnel under that which goes under the statue area into that big hall in the middle of the square. And
Yeah.
I want to see that tunnel, so I need to actually get down in the basement and have a look. And they said, "Oh yeah, it's definitely there." So apparently before it was a comedy club of any description,
Yeah.
was a police station, I think.
Yeah. It would have been
Small
the police
jail and
station and the courts across the road, I think.
so the course is now a college,
Yeah.
but they were connected via a tunnel. And I've got to see this. So,
That's
but,
amazing.
but yeah,
Um,
so no, it was great. Great project to be involved in. A little bit away from my normal wheelhouse of what I do during the day, which I know we want to talk about.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, essentially, it's just a great little bit of project management. It's no different to being on tour. You're just not on tour. Um,
Yeah.
it was it was the only event I've been involved in where no tickets were sold. So you don't know how
Oh,
many
good
people are going
point.
to show
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
So it's like, I know that, with Bloodstock, for example, we know that best part of 23,000 people are going to show up. So we know what we've got to provide.
Yeah.
With this event, from a health and safety point of view and all that kind of stuff, dealing with the council, sitting in SAG meetings, which is the Safety Advisory Group, which is 15 odd people who sit there going over everything with a fine tooth comb, going, what if it rains? We're going to get wet.
Yeah.
But it'll be slippery. Then I'll make sure I've got some brooms to sweep off any excess water. Yeah, they're the kind of questions they're asking. It's a
Yeah.
little bit more on terrorism and things like that. And we were really unfortunate. There was a spate of very public stabbings in the Midlands that week. There was one in Derby 4 days before where someone was stabbed in a bank. There was one in Hanley, the next or Stoke, the next mile over where someone was randomly stabbed. So that changed our approach to the security meetings and our police involvement because we're
Yeah.
working with the police. You know, we're working with the police to make sure that the ride in of the bikes coming into the event didn't turn into a free for all with 100 bikers because it was kind of beginning to pick up momentum that this thing was happening. It was like, oh, I'll bring my bike up. We'll all ride in together.
Yeah.
And we had a police escort. We were lucky enough to get a police escort for that because the police wanted to be involved in it.
Yeah.
We were really lucky. Like the
Oh,
police were,
to be fair, I do think they got the easiest shift everywhere. Of anybody, because every time I saw a policeman, they were either sat down or just stood around wondering why are we even here?
yeah.
Like no, this is it's pointless us being here.
Well, the best thing was about 8:30 maybe even earlier than 8 o'clock in the morning. We'd just done the first round of BBC interviews, and these two coppers walk in. I go and introduce myself because I have to introduce myself to all the cops who are coming in. I've
Yeah.
already dealt with the senior police management team, got all those guys in my phone ready for it. One of them said, I'm not going to be here, but I'll make sure they come and see it. These two kind of wander in. So I introduce them. They're like, what's going on today? I'm like, okay, you clearly haven't been told anything.
No.
And it turned out they were actually community police officers where they go between 4 or 5
Ah,
towns doing the
right.
rounds. So they're
Yeah.
not responsible for anything to do on the day. But it was like, so we had to go through it all. And, I've been dealing with your sergeant. And they're like, oh, brilliant, bye. And off they popped. And then they said, we will be coming back later because we want to see this now.
Yeah,
They
absolutely. Yeah.
came back and, the police were really helpful. We had to have a medic on site. The moment you step over 500 people, the things you have to provide to the public is very different to anything up to 499.
Ah, right. That's
You know,
interesting.
Portaloos, number of security per people, number of loos per people.
Right.
Um,
Okay. Yeah.
do you have a medic on site in the event of an emergency? We had one minor issue where someone had a diabetic drop in sugar and fainted. That combined with sunstroke, and I'm not going to assume there was plenty of beverages involved in that sugar spike, but
Yeah.
and
Could be.
site dealt with it. They were taken away and looked after, and no one was injured. It was very easy. I think the only damage that was done was me treading on one of the pieces of ped barrier fence and the feet breaking under it. Like that was it. Like
Right.
where when we were trying to get to the statue, once we'd brought Phil and Todd and the mayor and the Lord Mayor and all that kind of stuff, like, oh, we're in completely the wrong place. Right, we're going through there then. So
Yes.
that was the only thing that went wrong, like one piece of broken fence barrier, and the council didn't even charge us for it. They might now they've seen this if they see this, but like the council was super helpful. They wanted to be involved. The woman from the council events planning team. Um, she was ecstatic about it. And she came to us at 7 o'clock in the morning. She came and sat down in their office, and I thought she was going to set up a laptop and sit with us all day. Last thing I needed was someone from the council there all day
Oh
because
God. Yeah.
it's just one of those. It's like there's things that go on in tour production offices which councils don't need to know about, and it's like you don't need them hearing everything you're getting away with. And she was like, I reckon there'll be about 2,500, 3,000 people here today. And then she left. And like she loitered around a little bit. What's interesting is we had people coming into the event who were like, "Oh, is this the Stoke 100th anniversary party?" Because that's coming up in another week's time.
Right.
And I
Okay.
was like, "No, it's not." Oh, this is brilliant. I hope it's like this. And so I actually want to put an appearance at some point over the next few days up there and see what the 100th anniversary party's like and if they did as good a job as what we did. So,
Always on the clock. Always
oh
on the
yeah,
clock.
yeah. But
So,
good.
no, um, to give my listeners an idea, and me for that matter,
Yeah.
what it is you do, which is sort of kind of, I don't know, background logistics for just about every band anyone's ever heard of.
A lot of them. So I came off the road when I finished working for Motörhead 2011, and I'd met Vicky from Bloodstock. I moved back to the UK, and I got into we'll call it freight forwarding for bands. Is the simple part of it.
So were you tour managing before that, and before tour managing, were you a crew member? Because
So I
basically, the way I'm
was
looking at it is you're kind of like CEO at the top now, not getting your hands
no,
dirty, don't leave the
no,
country,
I
but
definitely get my hands
well,
dirty.
yeah, yeah,
So
but you've come up a quite a long ladder to get there.
yeah, I think so background. I worked in record stores as a kid, loved it. Was lucky enough to meet Machine Head very early on. Rob and I became friends. He invited me to go on tour with them and do fan club type stuff and take photos, shoot video, which I'm shit at. I'm not shit at it. I'm not a photographer.
Yeah,
I never have been, and I never claimed to be. But I shot a lot of footage from Machine Head back in the day, and all the way through to the end of the Blackening tour cycle, really. And then I worked for Motorhead as obviously we talked about this before on
yeah.
Motorcast as Lemmy's PA and security guy. And then I came off the road and got into doing logistics and moving bands around. And I've never wanted to be in a band. I never wanted to be a musician. I can just about hold down a drum beat. Don't ask me to get technical and don't ask me to play 4 different time signatures because it ain't gonna happen. But I can hold a beat. I hold down a good rock beat and most people are happy. And Yeah, so never wanted to be a musician. I was always interested in the logistical side of touring. So the
Yeah.
buses, the trucks, the freight, the hotels, the travel, the press, the guest list, the pure tour management stuff.
Yes.
Um, and I got into doing that. And it took me a while to sort of really find my feet, but I was lucky enough to know a load of bands who liked me and they sort of started giving me work. And, you know, I changed company a couple of times and now I'm with a company called Freight Minds and we have, we've got 60 staff around the world. Just about. We've only been going 4 years. It was a conglomeration of some of the best people in this business. Our client list goes from Robbie Williams to the Prodigy to Machine Head to the Who, the Mongolian metal band, and anything in between. So I deal with hip hop acts, pop acts, country acts, and they all
Currently doing a little bit of, to some stuff for Cradle of Filth today.
like Cradle of Filth. We're just sorting out some stuff for them. Like I've literally just had the prices to move their stuff from Download to Tuska, and then Tuska down to Rock Hard in Germany. But I mean, just a snapshot of who I'm currently working on stuff for. Anthrax, Architects, Bleed From Within, Black Veil Brides, Creed, Dayseeker, Devin Townsend, The Who. I do stuff with Kasabian as well. That's a separate job. Alexandra Kay, the country artist I've just had over here. I've got Machine Head coming in. Miles Kennedy of Mice and Men. Rachel,
Oh, of
Rachel.
Mice and Men. Are they they're still going then?
They're still going. It's a while before they come on. I'm just pricing up stuff for the back end of the year. And then I've got artists like Rachel Chinariri and Thames and WizKid, Spirit Box, um, Steel Panther, Tremonti is off at the moment. I've still got some stuff coming up on that. Then you got Cradle of Filth, Employed to Serve, Ghost Inside, Slaughter to Prevail,
Bloody hell.
Foreigner in the US, Silosis. I'm just pricing up While She Sleeps. Dragon Force, I've just done customs paperwork for them. Static X are just getting started for the summer. So,
Wow.
and that's just my clients that are currently active.
Yeah.
So, and it's everything from air freight, sea freight, private jets, customs paperwork, vans between festivals, um, rehearsal spaces for some
So, but
artists.
you're engaged right from the outset, aren't you? So it's not just you're engaged to actually make sure, once the tour's been routed, you will
Even
then put the logistics in place, or will you help route the tour?
even before we do get involved in routing, so does this make logistical sense?
Yeah.
We get artists who come to us and they want to go A to D to B to K to C, and you're like, no, hang on a minute. And especially when you're talking about big international moves and costing money, like tour managers can quite easily say, if the artist doesn't make any money at the end of the tour, well, we spent it all on freight. Well, hang on a
Yeah.
minute. I'm trying to advise you as early as we possibly can that this isn't the best way of doing this.
Oh, absolutely. I
Well,
mean, from even from a band's point of view, it shouldn't be what you want to do. It's what makes sense.
yeah.
There is no, there's no point doing a UK tour that starts in Glasgow, as Birmingham the next night, and Edinburgh the night after that, and
And I've
Manchester.
seen it. I've
Yeah,
seen it happen.
yeah, absolutely.
Um,
And you see the dates come out, and you just think, God, what? Somebody had a day off.
Well, I don't think people have days off. I think agents just throw darts at a map and say that'll do. Then
Yeah. Well,
they ring
I'm
the
not in
tour
the
manager
truck.
and say,
I'm
"Can
not
you
going to do
make
the
it?"
touring. I don't
Yeah,
care.
but they ring the tour manager and say, "Can you make this work?" And it's like, I don't know. We'll go away and speak to someone like me. Um,
Right.
and then we look at it and it's like, well, this doesn't make sense. You're
Yeah.
killing yourself on these. You've got too many off days. You're paying your crew for your off days. You've got 4 days
Yeah.
between shows. Now, fair enough, if you're in a luxury position where you're making loads of money and you're a good festival headline artist, you can afford a few days off.
Yeah.
But in the current climate, bands are trying to get as many shows in as they possibly can to make it
Yeah.
work. But you don't want to burn the band out, you don't want to burn the crew out. Do you need double drivers for buses and trucks? So
Yeah.
a great example, and I'll talk about it's probably Machine Head at the moment. We have Finland July 1st, day off, Athens July 3rd, Istanbul July 4th.
Right.
and that's a charter jet to move over a ton of equipment, plus a band and crew of 27,
Yeah.
um, for 3 shows, and
Yeah.
that's not cheap. There's no middle ground on it. It's not cheap, and I'm going through it with the tour manager to work out the best option. I was with the Who, the Mongolian band yesterday, in a similar situation, almost in reverse, where they go from Istanbul to Finland, and they've got large custom drums, like 28-inch wide drums. And they've got 24, 25, 26, 28, and they go into the biggest cases you've ever seen. I think it's a 1,400-mile drive, which you just, I might be completely wrong. Let me just check that. It can't be driven anyway. Um,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, hang on a minute, let's work out how we can do this to make sense. So that's going to be a charter jet. So I'd sit down with the band and the tour manager and the production manager to say, look, we need to get this gear down to 600 kilos to get it onto a small enough plane to make it make sense. Otherwise,
Yes.
it's going to cost you X £100,000.
Yeah, because you're
And
going
then when the band
basically you're
don't
going to
make any
have to
money,
hire a plane to shift
yeah,
all your gear.
yeah. But when you're talking about not making any money, why not? Well, we spent it all on the plane. It's not because the plane was expensive, it's because that was your only option.
Yeah.
So you have to be a bit
Yeah.
ruthless sometimes and be like, well, hang on a minute, we need to cut this down. Give me a second, I'm just going to bring this up right now. So Istanbul to Helsinki is 3,250 kilometers and is a 38-hour drive.
Right. Okay.
No, that's in a car without taking any
I was
breaks.
going to say that's not stopping as well.
That's not stopping and not including customs in Turkey. Um, you've got to go, you can avoid Serbia, which is a problem for most routes, but then you've got, Istanbul to Turkey, into Bulgaria, through Serbia, through Hungary, through Slovakia, through the Czech Republic, through Poland, through Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, ferry crossing into Finland.
Bloody hell.
And no truck can do that in
Yeah.
less than probably 60 hours.
Yeah.
So the band, I had to sit and say, look, we cannot take these items. So we need to make sure you can rent these items in Turkey because your Finnish show is a far bigger show. It's a festival headline slots. Um, it needs to be done correctly. So
Yeah.
that was what yesterday was, literally from 10 in the morning, from unloading their gear where I freighted it from Los Angeles, went through it with the backline crew and said, do you really need to take 40 sets of strings for one show? No, you don't. They're not going to go to Istanbul. Leave it here.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, basically space saving in every single
Yeah,
way you can.
being ruthless because some guys they want their full toolkit. And it's like you're not going to have it because your tool case weighs 160 kilos and won't fit on a small Embraer plane. So I will leave it on the tarmac and I won't feel any guilt about it. Like, you know.
Yeah.
So it's about managing their expectations. So,
Yeah.
if they think they're going to be able to do this show and make money, then this is how we do it. So that's where, companies like us get involved. And I work with a great team of very experienced people. I mean, I've been doing this for what, 14, nearly 15 years now. Um, the guy who actually brought me into the company, he's been doing it for twice that long. And I've wanted to work with him for years and learning from him with the stuff that he deals with. He's just done all of the Dua Lipa tour, which was, I think, over a couple of £1 million worth of business in 6 weeks' work. But it was
Right.
all charter jets everywhere for a huge amount of equipment. We're doing the same for Green Day at the moment. So we've got Green Day coming in for download. That was a huge amount of equipment just for this show. So it's a one-off. Um, and it never ends. So download, I'll be there. I have, I think, 18 bands on the bill who I or my company do the freight for. So
Yeah.
it's a handshaking experience. I might get to watch a couple of bands. But yeah, it's all work and it never ends. So yeah, there's some horror stories that you can tell
Yeah,
from
I can imagine.
um, Anthrax's tour manager. Him and I share horror stories all the time because he's had some ridiculous situations in places like Serbia where customs officers have insisted to travel across the whole of the country with him just to make sure that they're leaving. And then they just get on the
Bloody
bus,
hell.
just get on the bus and get drunk for 3 hours and get off at the other end. It's like couldn't make this up. So
Wow.
yeah, I miss the days where we used to send stuff into Russia because everything was a bribe.
Yeah.
Uh, Everything, crossing every border, getting out of airports with gear, everything was a bribe. I assume you've been to Russia a couple of times in the old days, and
In the old days.
yeah, I've actually only done it once, and I had a great time there with Machine Head in '08, and we were there for 72 hours, if that, and I did everything. In fact, no, I think it was about 50 hours. I managed to do everything I wanted to do and got blindingly drunk on Russian vodka in some bar, like it was from dusk till dawn or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, so that's my day job. Basically, bands will come to us sometimes 3, 6 months before a tour, sometimes a year before, sometimes 10 minutes before the gear is ready for pickup.
I was just going to say there's the one end of things where it's really nice you're working with a booker who's saying, look, these are my prospective dates, these are a couple of routes I could go down, which do you think would be best
Yes,
logistically, that works so we can all make as much profit out of this as possible. Great,
exactly,
wonderful.
and
And this is like a year in advance, and
yeah.
and all the rest of it. And then there's the other kind of like, we're in a problem, can you help us
Well,
out?
so here's a great example for Bloodstock. Last year we had a monomath, and the deal was done. Me and Vicky sat in the production office with the manager and the tour director and the tour manager at Grasspop. And they were like, well, our show is the night before in Hamburg. We can't get there. And Vicky loves to do this. And I work with the 5B guys all the time, so it's not a problem for me. But Vicky was like, we can get there. He'll get you there. I'm like, huh? So basically, it was a private jet and then two vans to pick up the gear. 'Cause you can't put it in a truck because there isn't time to drive it because of driving hours and speed limits and everything else.
Yeah,
So we split the gear across two vans. I had them ready to go in Hamburg 2 hours before the end of the set. The plane was ready to fly at 8 o'clock the next morning. So the band got decent, semi-decent night's sleep. Um, the two vans picked the gear up and off they went. And I have never watched the GPS on two vans in my office so much in my entire life. But Vicky did the deal based on the festival paying for the freight. So the
right.
festival picked up a tab of, I think it was about 100 grand, 60 grand, something like 60 grand, I think it was. Um, yeah, it was 60 off the fee. But then it's a tax break for the band because they're not paying the tax on that. Vicky's able to claim the VAT back because I'm billing her, so it works better in her interest.
Yeah.
The band know that the gear is going to get there because they've worked with me for years and they trust me to get it done. But I've never been more nervous about one shipment in my life than that one because
Yeah, I
it's
can imagine. Well,
it's
all you need,
it's
all you need is, I mean, well, you start thinking punctures, you start thinking breakdowns, you start thinking
well, I've
accidents,
I have that
anything,
situation right now,
traffic.
but I have that situation right now, which we'll go into in a second. But like,
Oh shit.
it's not that. It's my wife is the one paying the bill. Like, this goes wrong, I'm fucked. Not only does Bloodstock not have a headliner, I ain't gonna get paid.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, a monomath would still put on an amazing show without the theatrical inflatables and the set pieces and everything else. But as a headliner, you want that show.
yeah,
And so I'm sat there watching the GPS, like, and you've been to Bloodstock, it's the middle of nowhere. Phone signal gets a bit ropey at times, but I'm sat there watching these two vans and I can see them pull into the site. And I'm like, they're early, this is great. Then I can't find them. I find the vans and they're empty. And
oh
I'm
shit.
like, where's the gear? They're like, I'm not looking at my watch, like, where's the fucking gear? And it's already on the stage. The drivers have just unloaded it and put it on the dock before I've even known they've arrived. I'm like, oh my God. I literally went back to I've got an office upstairs, which I share with the security team. And I
Oh, is
sat,
that where I saw you on the way out last year?
was that upstairs? I was upstairs.
Yeah, yeah, it's like it's
Vicky and
it's
Ad were
right
waiting
round the
with
back
us.
as you're sort of walking out the festival if you go
Yeah.
out the
Yeah.
back
So
from backstage.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm upstairs, which is great because I'm with because I work alongside the security team as well, and the event controller, and we have a lot of laughs up there. It's a good team of people. I just sat there and I'm like, I've got a coffee machine on my desk. I'm like, push that button, make me a coffee. I just sat there, like, if ever there was a time to feel calm, that was it. But it was
Yeah.
like, and the management were fine. They weren't, I wasn't under any pressure, like, but I am under pressure because I want it to happen.
Yeah.
And it's got to happen because my wife will fucking murder me. So, but I'm working with an artist at the moment who's agreed to do, or the agent has agreed to do download on Friday, the far side of Switzerland on Saturday.
Oh, right. Well,
Yeah,
how's he getting them there then?
they're ringing me. So, so the artist is like, I've said, look, this gear will just about go into one van, but if anything goes wrong, your show's done.
Yeah, this is eggs in basket
So,
situation,
like,
isn't
so
it?
I've literally had to convince the artist. I said, look, this is your call. The van is going to cost X. I want to send two vans. Do we need two vans? No, but if one goes wrong, we
There
can
it
put
is.
the gear in the other one
Yeah.
and send
Yeah.
it.
You've got to put everything, yeah, everything or
I
split the
don't have a
load over the
choice.
two vans.
And I'm working with the download stage manager. I was on the phone with him yesterday to say, look, I know we shouldn't be doing this. I don't know when the last time you did download was, but for the bands not headlining, they don't get to put their vehicles on the dock. They
Mm,
have to go up to the paddock, cross load, put it on the stage, take it off the stage, send it back to the paddock. That takes nearly an hour.
yeah.
I don't have an hour to spare. Like, I need to put the gear in the back of these vans, push those vans out the back door, and say, sod off to Switzerland.
Yeah.
Go. Don't mess around. Go.
Yeah.
And that's how it is. So, I absolutely bribed the shit out of the stage manager yesterday. I said, look, I know we shouldn't be doing this, but I need some help with this. And he goes, no, don't worry. I know you'll get them out. I know they won't be there all day taking up space. Just
Yeah.
we'll get them done. We'll get them loaded. We'll get them gone. But that's where, my relationships with people like the stage manager are important because you have to
Yes.
be able to call in these favors.
Yeah.
Once I've done that, he will not see me again for the weekend. Like, I'm done. Like,
Yeah.
but to get them off the stage and get them gone, I'm actually really lucky because Miles Kennedy's on after him, and their tour manager's a really good friend of mine. So it's like, need a bit of
All
help here,
right. Yeah.
guys. I'm gonna get the fuck out your way, but just give me a couple of minutes to do this.
But the thing is, I would imagine as well is that this is happening all the time. You're all doing each other
Very,
favors because
very much so.
ultimately that's your job. No one's ever going to come at you. No one's ever going to come at you like, oh, you've really fucked this up, haven't you? No, because whatever it is, it's been dumped on you to sort.
Well, it's you have to plan it properly beforehand.
Yeah.
You have to know what you're doing. So I'm working with this artist. I'm working with the artist directly and the tour manager and the stage manager. And obviously then I've got two vans as well, to make sure everything happens. Like my Friday at download will be fairly busy until I get rid of those guys. Then after that I can
Yeah.
sit back and actually chill a little bit. But that first few hours is pretty hectic, but that's what we do. And
Yeah.
I know you've been in situations where you've had problems getting to a show, you've got 20 minutes of changeover and you do a complete throw and go where it's like, and you do the line check, we're done and we're good to go.
Yeah.
It's part of the business. I've done it with headline acts, I've done it with small acts, I've done it when touring myself. Like, you've literally got to the stage by the skin of your teeth, you know, and you make the show happen. And no one out in the crowd has any idea
Yeah.
what the guys behind the scenes and the crew for the band have actually gone through to make it happen. And
Yeah.
I love that. I love that adrenaline.
Oh,
Like,
you walk out on stage, you've had no sound check.
oh yeah,
You've literally been there for about half an hour. And yeah, and people are, yeah, well, should be completely, unaware of that. Um,
my record is 14 minutes
Bloody
from
hell.
having a dock, a van land on the dock to getting it on stage and pressing go. No
Wow.
sound check. And that's with a major band in Barcelona a few years ago, and all kinds of traffic problems on I think it was Amsterdam to Barcelona back to back, which is a long bloody way.
Yeah.
And it was like the traffic in Barcelona was just like the last 4 miles took an hour and a half or something stupid. And it was
Yeah.
like the tour manager was like, it is what it is. Just, and this thing, you can't lie to the client. Like, guys, this is going to be tight. I might need you to lose your sound check. It's not on me, but if you tell them, oh yeah, it's going to be there 4 hours before, then they're ready for it 4 hours before, and it's not,
Yeah.
then
Well, I've lost a slot at a festival purely because it was funnily enough it was when we first came back. It was the first festival we were supposed to do, and where I was on the phone with them saying, "Look, we've been delayed. M6 is closed. We're stuck on it." And I was still talking to them when we got onto the M6 toll, and they just said, "Look, we've moved things around here, but there's nothing we can do. Your slot's gonna
well,
go."
a brilliant situation
You know,
like that was that year that Bloodstock had the storms, and we almost lost Cradle of Filth, Anthrax, and Parkway Drive.
bloody
So
hell.
that was the top three bands on the bill that day.
Yeah,
And this storm blew in, which basically had all the lighting trusses blowing out to an angle where the lights were at risk of coming off the trusses. And so we had to bin Cradle of Filth from the Saturday. And luckily, we were in a good position because I worked with all three artists. So I was able to the tour managers were easy. Danny Filth was super easy. He's like, oh, we just play tomorrow if you want. And we didn't have a slot, but we made a slot for them.
yeah,
The Cradle lost their Saturday slot, played the Sunday. We allowed anyone who bought a Saturday ticket just to see Cradle of Filth to come back on the Sunday. But Anthrax were also at risk of losing their slot, because the storm wasn't going away. Their stuff was on the stage ready to go, and Paul, their tour manager, who, like I said, we have some amazing horror stories, but he got them from on the side of the stage to go in 7 minutes. Like the wind dropped, health and safety said we could do it. It happened. Parkway Drive had the biggest pyro you've ever seen at Bloodstock. They had these 50-foot flame jets off the top of the stage, which are supposed to go straight up. We're all watching from front of house, and these flame jets all just go vroom, and just go out the side off the
bloody
top of the
hell.
stage. They should have been going up. They went out at
Yeah.
like 20 degrees. And you're like, don't think that's quite the look they were going for, but it was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
That's of
Um,
course that is of course I mean I was talking about traffic and stuff like that, but that's the real one, isn't it? Weather.
yeah. No,
That
there's
is the
nothing
one
you can
that's
do.
yeah, exactly. I was going to say that's the one that can really fuck you over.
Yeah. And, when you're talking about freight, yes, traffic, the roads can kill my job. The artist like yourself, there's nothing you can do. There's absolutely no, you could leave as early as you want. If the M6 is closed, it's closed.
Yeah.
Then, we have the same situation like ocean freight. Like ocean freight from the West Coast to here should take X amount of days. All that happen is, you get a problem around the Suez Canal, get
Yeah.
stuck there, Panama gets stuck there. Then you've got any kind of storm causing a ship delay. You've got any kind of congestion in a port, and most ocean freighters don't go direct. They're stopping at multiple places,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
they will
Now,
stop there.
also, I heard recently of, yeah, basically things having to change direction once on the ocean because of because of the pirate attacks.
So you've got that. Luckily, a lot of the stuff that we send generally doesn't go too near the coasts of Africa,
Yeah.
generally. Um, Not Central Africa's never been massive for metal touring, so I've never sent a lot of artists there. But it's also just one of those territories where you're going to need a boat full of Marines to make sure you're safe. But these things go wrong. Like there was definitely something post Brexit where and they'll never admit it, but ferry companies would, oh, we haven't got time to stop in the UK, so we're going
Yeah.
to drop your gear in Holland or
Oh,
Hamburg.
oh,
And then
dearie
you've
me.
got you've got a whole. It's not the end of the world getting it from there to here, but the sailing time's like an extra 4 days sometimes. Oh,
Yeah.
we're just going to change the route slightly and go via Copenhagen to Hamburg. You're like, huh? You're supposed to go around the bottom of the UK. You're supposed to be going to Southampton. Why are you now going to Copenhagen? That's a big change of direction.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you that was Brexit. Like these things, like there was a point where I wouldn't entertain ocean freight for anything that really didn't need it. The prices were stupid anyway. And I'm doing a cost comparison at the moment for an artist for Florida to Hamburg. and it can go out the port of Miami, and it should be fairly sensible. Um, or I could send it to London or Southampton on a quicker crossing and then truck it over, or I could air freight it. And we're going to look at when the band want to finish rehearsals, because I have to allow 25 days for the ocean crossing,
Yeah.
including loading of the ship, unloading of the ship at the start and end, which can be up to sort of 4 or 5 days sometimes. Depending on, you look at an ocean container ship, they're carrying thousands of containers. If your container's right at the bottom, they've all got to be moved to get to it. And they
Yeah.
are normally packed in some kind of order, but sometimes it's just, nope, it's at the bottom. You've got to wait for the unloading process. So there's all these things to think about. And, I'm
Yeah.
lucky most of my artists are not at that scale, but like Andy, who I work with, like, I think he did, I think he did 36 ocean containers for Tyler, the Creator, last weekend, loading out of Glasgow, loading straight from I think it was Ibrox, so straight out of Ibrox. Oh, I don't know where it was. Wherever it was in Scotland, they paid in Glasgow. They literally,
Yeah.
I don't know. They literally finished, loaded straight into ocean containers and straight down to the port the next day. I did Elton John a couple of years ago, which was 15 ocean cans out of Liverpool, 15 out of Stadium of Lights at Sunderland, literally loaded straight to port and straight to America. Things like
So what
that.
about do you ever work on these tours which you've got basically there's you've got two crews as it were.
Yeah.
You've got one crew working a day
Elton John
ahead.
was Elton John was three.
Right.
It was three stadiums worth of gear. And so we were flip-flopping on them, but our staff were flip-flopping between them.
Yeah. So
Well,
you're literally so
alongside
you
their crew.
so that's literally two teams. That's one team working a day ahead
Yeah.
and then one team working on the day
Yeah.
and just constantly
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. But that's where, like you look at Metallica right now, they've got two and a half full touring setups. They've got their M72 tour, which is that gorgeous monolithic stage in the round with all the repeater towers around it. They've got
Yeah.
two of those rigs, two completely separate sets of stage management running each show. Then they have another set of gear which is just for festivals. So when they first brought out, was it 23, 24, 20, 24, 23 they started that touring cycle. They did download. They always had a different setup for download for what they had for the other festivals, but they still managed to deliver the M72 show on a festival set. And it was brilliant.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, when you're working with artists like that, and that's a different scale entirely. And like, on something like that, we'll have staff actually out on the road with it for the whole time. So on Green Day, we have 1 to 2 people on that. On anything difficult,
Yeah.
uh, on anything difficult, we have people at every major show, every major move. And something like Green Day, which is a major move every day, then we'd have crew traveling with it for 4 or 5 weeks at a time.
Yeah.
And we become a part of the crew. So even when I'm working with smaller acts like The Who, like Machine Head, you're a member of the crew. Like the backline guys know you, the band begin to know you. Like, you're essentially like, you'll get a phone call about, can you pull this from this case and send it for repair? If we've got stuff in storage in a warehouse somewhere, like, they expect you to know their gear. And that's important. So for people with my background of understanding what the gear is, literally while we've been in, Matt from Machine Head has rung me, and I know he wants to talk about moving his drums to Germany next week, which I've got to organise for him. And it's like,
Right.
he's actually rung me twice. If he rings again, I'm going to put him on the screen and make him talk to you.
Well, it's
But
funny you should say that because our new drummer,
yeah,
Jonathan,
yeah.
is from the same town and knows Matt.
Oh, does he?
Yeah,
Oh, there you
yeah.
go.
And he said he's like, yeah, he's really pleased for him. He's a like top guy. He just landed this gig, and
I
it's
will
just
I will talk shit about Matt Alston all day because he's become one of my best friends over the last 5 years. I started working with him when he was on Limp Bizkit as a drum tech.
right.
So and we were doing Limp Bizkit's Freight with the old company I worked for. So Matt and I would always be hanging, and I know most of Limp Bizkit's crew from various tours years ago. Um, but Matt and I just became friends. And when he got the job in Machine Head, I was absolutely over the moon for him. And we both have a love for a particular random Canadian cartoon puppet that we both love. And so we send each other Instagram reels of Mona just talking shit, and it's the cutest, most non-offensive puppet you've ever seen. But Matt and I both sit there sharing these reels all day. But yeah, so but he'll be ringing me now to say, look, can we get these drums set up? I'll have to spend a day with him probably next week before downloads, probably Monday or Tuesday, to get then send their gear to Belgium for their rehearsals to start for the summer. Um, and then they've got, full July and August of touring, including a Bloodstock headline set with
Yeah.
the biggest. I mean, Machine Head now, their touring production is the best production they've had in their career. Like Rob has really invested the money in a very good looking show, and it delivers all the hits and actually looks like a headliner. It's like, you know, people don't want to just see backdrops and scrims anymore. If you're going to be
Yes.
if you're going to be a headliner, you've got to be bringing video and pyro or something
Yeah.
inflatable nowadays. Like you've got
Yeah.
to, you've just got to do it. I mean, even the Who I was with yesterday, and I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who sees them on this tour. They've got an incredible inflatable on their stage, um, and it's what people want to see. They want that level of production brought now. With ticket prices going up and costs of touring going up, like people want to see a spectacle.
Yeah.
And so yeah,
Yeah.
so for Machine Head, I think Matt's having a great time. He's loving it, and but he's got so much background in the logistical side of being when he first went to Machine Head, he was crewing as well,
Right.
and he became sort of a surrogate production manager. So I can actually get into the logistics of saying, Matt, we can't do this. Shut up.
So hang on. He's ended up in the same he's ended up in the same business as you, but he's actually ended up in the band that got you into the business.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny really, but like Matt and I have become very close working on Machine Head stuff, but we've always been friends anyway. But now it's like when he'll start talking to me about the tours. There was a point where he was literally production managing the band and advancing all the moves for the freight side of it while they were between tour managers.
Wow.
So Matt was at one point my client as the PM. Now I have to respect him as a member of the band.
Yeah.
Whether I can or not's another matter. And I will tell him to watch this to hear me talk shit about him. But honestly, but because he understands what it takes, like he'll go, right, let's get together in London next week, sort the gear out. Let's go through
Yeah.
it, make sure we're doing the right stuff. Let's mark up the stuff for this charter jet, for the private jet moves perfectly, so we know exactly what's going on. He's super switched on, super intelligent, and he's not a bad drummer. So, but
Well,
that's
that must make a change though, having dealing with an artist who is that kind of switched on to the logistics side of things.
yeah. And when and I'm not going to speak prematurely, but when Matt decides to retire from being a musician or a drummer, um, then and he'll hear that. I think he'll end up coming. I'd love him to come work with me because he knows what he's doing. And
Yeah.
finding people for this job is really hard because you could work in customs for your entire life doing customs entries, just clearing customs like we have to do. But this stuff's actually fun. I love what I do, man. I, you
Yeah.
know, I was, I, I was, I saw, I've seen part of the new Sleep Token show already from rehearsals yesterday. I've seen this new Who show. When I get to the first show when I get to download and see the Sleep Token show, I'm gonna see I know what went into it to make it be what it is. I love that side of it.
Yeah.
It's fun. Like I actually wake up and enjoy what I'm doing. Most people don't enjoy their jobs at all.
Yeah. But and you get to see behind the scenes.
Yeah, but again, no one's going to know what you do. You're just you're always hanging out with the tour manager. You're always talking about the next five moves or
Yeah.
the end of the tour and working out how we're going to do it efficiently and try not to cost them a fortune and try and another thing we do is we'll try and put bands together. So if I have a lot of stuff going to LA and bands don't need it in a hurry, I'll be like, right, I'm gonna wait until I've got X, Y, and Z band finish their tour, then we'll ship it all together.
So through all of this,
Yeah,
and I don't expect you to name names, but
yeah.
then you must have had experiences where you're like, yeah, never working with you again.
Um, I've got a couple of people who just haven't paid bills. Like, and then
I mean, well, that falls into that category for me.
yeah, it definitely does. I did pay you for the thing the other day, didn't I?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Make sure we got that one sorted. But yeah, like so, I had someone who rang me, and they were supporting Eminem, and they said we've got 200 boxes of merch that need picking up. When? Oh, tonight. And I was actually at the show, like as a punter, not in any working capacity. So you need 200 boxes of merch picked up on a Sunday night from Twickenham. Yeah, okay, I'll pick them up. What do you want done with them? Just stick them in storage for now. So I get them back to storage, and it's like a £500 job. It's nothing huge, you know. Then they're like, we want to send them all to Norway. I'm like, you really don't.
yeah.
Because,
There goes your
Norway,
profit.
well, there's no profit because you
Yeah,
have to, with Norway, you have to import merch at the price you're selling it at, not the cost price. So, and the import duties are really high. And this is something which we have to explain to artists all the time. Why can't you just take them there? So, because, well, this was pre-Brexit. So Norway is not part of Europe. Norway has its own
yeah.
rules to be imported. And you want to ship 200 boxes of what is essentially an £80 hoodie. So 200 times 20 times 80, that's 320 grand, and you're going to pay nearly 40% of that on VAT up front. Like, yeah, you are. We've got a festival there. I said, well, in which case you have your bus come and pick up what you need, and you take it that way
Yeah.
because there's no other way. So I still have 200 boxes of hoodies
Yeah.
sat in storage, which will never go anywhere. The best thing was the T-shirt said "bigger than you" on them, and I'm not tiny. But it said "bigger than you" and an arrow pointing that way. So I took about 10 of these home for myself just to wear to the gym, and it was like I could have lived in those shirts literally forever. I'd never have to buy another T-shirt again because
Yeah.
I was like, "What do you want to do this?" Oh, I don't know. So they get a storage bill, which they never pay. It's just gonna sit there until I just get rid of it. And I think it's gone now. But it was like they never did anything.
That's bizarre. I mean, was that literally a random call? You'd never worked with them
Never
before? It
worked
was
with them
just,
before. They were recommending me by someone. Said, "Oh, I understand you can fix things short notice." Yeah, of course I can get a truck there tonight. It's not ideal because I've got to now go to the event manager and say, "Hey, I want to bring a 7.5 ton truck in here during loadout when you've already got 35 trucks leaving later."
yeah.
And I've also got to try and find that production manager at a show which I don't have a pass for. Like,
Wasn't
help.
there just a temptation to go, nah, I can't do that?
No, because you never know. That artist could turn into the next Eminem, and then they're shipping
Yeah.
200 tons of freight. And
Yeah.
I've
And they won't
worked
use
with,
anyone but you.
yeah, and I've gone, I've, and Andy, who I work with, and he's taught me this a lot. Like, if someone rings you at 3 o'clock in the morning, you answer it because if they're ringing you, they need you.
Yeah.
And if they're ringing you and they haven't got hold of their normal person, you've then got them as a client forever.
Yeah.
And it's so true. Like
Oh,
Vicky,
your
Vicky knows.
world definitely strikes me as that. I've used this guy 50 times. He's never let me down. He let me down the 51st time. Never used him again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
I've got one artist who I absolutely love working with. Nothing has ever gone wrong, ever. Hasn't returned my calls this year, and they're about to go back on tour. I'm like, dude, what have I done? Like, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
There's no contracts in place. There's no,
Yeah.
you are part of our business plan. It's people can change their minds. But,
Yes.
I'm lucky enough that I've only ever properly lost one client, and that was to the guy who is now my boss. And
Oh, right.
we joke about it. But I knew I was going to lose him. I knew I was going to lose the client because the tour manager who was coming onto it, I know had been loyal to this guy for 15 years.
Yeah.
I kept him sweet for a while, and then I got a platinum disc from the band one day, and I got binned the next. And it just
That's
was what it
a
was.
nice way of doing it, though.
I was pissed. I sent a very shitty email to the management, and it was what it was. And now myself and my boss work with this client, and it's great. And everyone's really happy because the backline guys love me. The tour manager is now one of my guys anyway, so it's like it goes around, and you know what it's like. Bands go through tour managers like butter.
Yeah.
So, you know, you keep your tour managers happy. If you're really lucky, you never have anything go wrong, and they just keep handing your business card out, and you keep doing it.
Yeah,
The guy who got me onto the Who this month, um, I've worked with him on 5 artists now, and he brought me and said, "Look, this is a mess. The tour manager who was supposed to be doing it hadn't done any of the work. The gear's
yeah,
sat in LA. I need it over here in a week. Can you get someone to the storage in LA, get it sorted out, get it shipped over here, meet me at rehearsals, and we'll make a plan?" And I've done, I think, 4 artists with him. 3 of them have been me fixing problems, and this one I think could actually have some real longevity in it.
yeah,
Um, I spent a day with them yesterday explaining everything, and they're like, "This is great. We needed someone like this." And I think if you go out and actually take that time to get to know people, it's a very easy job. But there's only 3 companies who really do what we do, so it's a very, you can ring FedEx if you want FedEx to move your gear around the planet. They will do it, and they will charge you a massive fee for it.
yeah, yeah,
But you ring them at 5:01 on a Friday night, you are never going to get an answer out of them
yeah.
because they don't care. You're just another airway bill number.
Oh,
And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
you
you'd be
know,
lucky if you have an account manager. You'll speak to somebody different every
oh yeah,
time.
you're ringing an 0800 number. You're going to speak to someone. You're going to hand them an airway bill number. They're going to go, "Oh, stuck in customs. Oh well."
Yeah,
I don't have that luxury. If you ring me and say I need my gear there at 4 p.m. on Tuesday, it will be there at 4 p.m. on Tuesday, and that's how you have to do it. Whereas FedEx are like, "Yeah, it should be there on Monday." Well, there's no one there on Monday. The show's not till Tuesdays. There's no one there. So
yeah,
you don't have that luxury with mass freight forwarding. If you want to send a document from, I need to send customs paperwork from here to America, FedEx all day.
yeah.
But I did some stuff with Machine Gun Kelly 10 years ago, and his tour manager had FedExed 3 tons of gear.
Wow.
3 tons. And someone from Live Nation rang me and was like, "If you can do this for less than like 30 grand, you're going to get the work."
Yeah.
I was like, "That's like 4 grand's worth of work." And he's like, "Yeah, we'll charge him 31 then, and you're still going to get it because it's less than 36." And I'm like, and I'm never going to rip the client off like that. But it's like,
Yes.
at that stage in his career, the tour manager he had was not a tour manager; it was just his friend.
Right.
And
Yeah. And
he
he's
was
just
shit.
thought, oh,
Oh well, I'd
FedEx.
use FedEx.
Yeah.
And it was just like, this is man. You shipped like 5 pallets of equipment, and it was like,
This is how musicians, boxers, actors lose money. They have an entourage of people doing things for them that don't know how to do them. They're just
yeah,
doing them because they're their mates.
yeah. Oh, and I've seen it. I've seen it on much bigger tours as well.
Yeah.
Uh, I went out with a major rapper a few years ago who had kept one of his boys around from the beginning, and his job was basically to put different SIM cards in phones every day. So every
Right.
time they changed country, they got new SIM cards for all of the entourage.
Yeah.
And this guy had his own office in arenas, and he'd sit there
Wow.
looking at SIM cards and phones, just like da 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 da. 1,800 a week.
Yeah, I know. And seeing the world while you're at it and staying in.
1,800 a
Yeah.
week to switch SIM cards.
Yeah.
Come on, man. I was like, I'll do it, John. I'll do it in a tenth of the time. Like,
That's mad.
I need to get a
That is
fucking
absolutely
roaming
mad.
plan. Like,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have to pay the guy 1,800 a week. Yeah, so, but that's where you get involved with people and you can help them actually make better decisions.
Yeah.
Um, and I love that side of it. Seeing a band go home, make a load of money, be happy, know that you put the gear on the stage to make it happen, and you're probably working on the next tour. It's great.
That's
That's
amazing,
what I
man.
do.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Look, dude, I've taken up way too much of your time as it
That's
is.
fine.
Really appreciate it. And say hello to Matt for me when he inevitably rings you in the next few minutes.
I'll have to ring him back.
Yeah. Really appreciate it. Let me know what if something comes of that Lemmy thing. And
Oh, of course I will.
if not, if I don't see you before, I'll see you at Bloodstock.
If anyone's got any random questions about how to get into this business, then more than welcome to hit me up on Instagram at Alan Hungerford or at Freight Minds. Um, yeah, and for anyone who inside the industry listens to this, we're nicer than the people at Rocket, so call me.
Brilliant. All right, mate. Thank you very much. Have a good
Cool.
day.
Cheers, Harry. Speak to you soon, mate.
Cheers, dude. Bye bye.